All right, awesome. Um, Hi everyone, I'm Nabil. I'm from Status. I joined about 6 months ago on the team, so I'm relatively new to this space. It's been incredibly interesting to learn everything about kind of building for Web3. Um, my first day on the job was actually DevCon 3, and so that was kind of baptism by fire. And yeah, it's amazing. Now I actually understand about 20% of what's going on versus zero on my first day. So I was under the impression that this was like a UX get together. So everything here is very non-technical. It's all about designers and for designers. But I think there are some designers here, and for everyone else, I guess it's a different flavor from all the rest of the presentations that have kind of come through. For those that don't know what Status is, it's a messaging app. As you saw half an hour ago, we have chat, wallet, and dApp browser. The chat is built on top of Whisper, so decentralized, and then, yeah, you can see the UI here. So it's an interface, it's familiar to people, and I wanted to talk a bit about, one, design at Status, the challenges that we face, some of the things that we're going through and addressing those challenges, also about how we operate as an organization, and then how we think about collaborating with the rest of the ecosystem. So I guess the first thing is that there's not that many teams that are focused on delivering things for end users, and I think if there were more designers in the room, I'd be getting a lot more nodding heads. But we really lack the focus on doing that. So for example, I was talking to a team yesterday about a project that they're doing to build a layer on top of the blockchain where it's like it's a querying layer to do analysis. And it's very easy to build a dashboard on top of that. But the team was just building the protocol layer and not actually taking like the extra 20% to build something that's usable for users. And so that was, a little bit, like, I find that a bit surprising for us as a community when we're so focused on, we're gonna change the world, and like no one's actually thinking about what goes in the hands of these users. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit of a rant out of the way. Let's get started. So, I mean, as I described, we're kind of in the middle of this shift between Web 2 and Web 3. We're using a lot of old patterns and designs that we have from Web 2, and I'll go through a couple of examples, and we're trying to come up with what this new pattern looks like. And there's a lot of differences between Web 2 and Web 3. Obviously, we're going from some sort of PII-based bit information, such as a phone number and email, to completely anonymized. This is your identity, is the one on the right. Users probably don't quite understand that or know how to interact with that yet. We're talking a brand new language. It's this stuff, if you're not in this ecosystem, pretty much all these words are completely foreign. So it's like, send money, no, all you need to do is just sign the transaction. I don't know how to do that on the screen. Like, just very, very simple things that everyone in this room it's like second nature. For our end users, have no clue what we're talking about. So one of the things that we do at Status is, before we actually write a single line of code, there's been somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks of development that's already started. And so that involves things like user studies. So this is a user study that happened last month in Berlin. We have one of our user researchers on the left, basically running through a demo. You can see them on the right with the blurred faces of a prototype build of, for example, the onboarding feature or the new wallet flow, right? Actually testing, and everyone's taking notes in the foreground. So this is something we do for every design that we have, and we do this also not only after we have designed, so like a prototype test like this, but also we go into the field, and when we say, hey, we're gonna work on, like, how can we improve our SDK? How can we do this? How can we do that? For dApp developers, we send one of our user researchers to go to the dApp developer conference that happened in Kiev, and we get back information like this. So we asked, I don't know, I think like 50 or 100 dApp developers, And we said, what's the most frustrating thing about working on Eth, whatever, and then they just give very clear answers, right? And so when you're sitting down thinking, hey, what are the most important things for us to improve, like the information's right here. And it's very easy to do work for the sake of doing work because it's a hard problem and I need to solve it. But the hard problem isn't the one that is always going to have the most impact on our users. Conscious data collection. This is an interesting topic. As user-facing applications, and anyone who's worked in design or product or engineering, you use data to basically make your product better, and you have a feedback loop, right? So you use Google Analytics or you use Mixpanel or something. In this space, we're doing all this work to decentralize everything, and then you're just like, all right, well, I'll just put Mixpanel in there, and the whole thing goes to shit. So on that note, we actually we did implement Mixpanel, and we're planning on taking it out. So we're only using it for our closed beta so we can get some sort of metrics. But as an example, this was our opt-in flow for people to opt into using Mixpanel, right? And you can see it's a very obvious flow. iOS uses this exact same flow. It's something users are familiar with, but it's a bit of a dark pattern. And so there was a lot of reflection and discussion on the team about this is a little bit too aggressive, and it's a natural thing for people to press the top button. So we changed the opt-in flow to actually look like the one on the right. So it's a double opt-in, and both buttons on the bottom left have the same UI strength. So this is another thing that we're dealing with, and then on top of that, there's no team right now. I mean, there was one that we saw yesterday, if anyone was at the prizes in the afternoon. This actually building a dashboard for people to get analytics or metrics about DApp usage. So everyone's running blind unless you use Mixpanel. Like, this data is available on the blockchain, you can use it. We don't need people's personal information, we just need usage metrics. No one is building that. We do not have that. So, yeah. Exactly. All right, so that's kind of gives you an idea of the type of things that we're kind of dealing with and looking at Status. It's very much this is a user that's coming to us who knows nothing about this space, who we want to make their lives better, whether we're banking in the unbanked or giving freedom of speech to journalists in Iran. Like, these are all things that we think that we're doing, and then we give them some crazy 10-step sign-up flow and then say, hey, write down these 24 seed phrase. Like, this stuff is crazy for average users. All right. So I'll talk a little bit about how we operate as an organization as well, just in case anyone's interested. We've implemented an OKR process. For those that aren't familiar, it's objectives and key results. Basically, every quarter, the entire team gets together, looks at every single thing that we can do, and it's very much a collaborative effort. And with hundreds and hundreds of post-it notes and dot voting, we basically come up with a structured list of, this is our most important things that we're doing, next important, next important, next important. And every team has that, and it really helps to basically give everyone who's working on a particular problem a specific North Star. So that's been good, it's been useful. If anyone's interested in how the team came up with this process, I'll be here, or Andy. By the way, Andy's on our team, he's wearing the awesome pants. We also work in swarms, which once again, if you go to our GitHub, you can actually, you can see how these swarms operate and how they form. So if anyone's interested, basically a swarm is a team of, say, a PM, a designer, a bunch of engineers, whoever wants to tackle a particular problem, they get together in a swarm. The swarm normally tries to tackle a specific OKR, has entry and exit metrics. So they go in saying, we want to drop battery consumption by 90%. And the team operates for a month or 2 months, and then when they drop by 90%, the swarm disbands. So it's an interesting model of how to create this team structure in a completely decentralized environment. So GitHub repo, YouTube, all our town halls are live streamed on YouTube, and we do that every 2 weeks. And our entire, every swarm gives an update, our entire roadmap is public, so yeah, it's been interesting. We're up to number 8, that's happening this Monday. All right, and now on to the last point, which hopefully is the most important, which is how can we all work together? First, a bit of a plug, so we're hiring, and these are all design roles, so I mean, we're also hiring non-designers for most people in the room, but there's a ton of designers we're trying to bring on board. An example like a product content strategist sounds like a very fluffy type of job, but it's actually super important. So when you use words like signing a transaction or seed phrase, like all that stuff confuses users. So this person is responsible for how people are understanding what's happening in the application. So when you have like a paragraph of text, can you shrink that down to a couple of words? Can we test that to make sure that users understand what that is, right? Just making everything a lot cleaner, more succinct. Anyway, so this is everything that we're bringing on board. If you know anyone in the space, yeah. And then also we have open bounty, and we have design bounties as well for all the designers in the room, where there are certain things you want to achieve. For example, for EthPrize, the entire EthPrize site was built using open bounty. So, you know, we put the bounty up there. How much was it for? Okay, around $2,000 worth of US dollars. So $2,000 to build a site, all through open bounty. So, and then finally, this is something that I've been harping on about for a while, and you know, I'll keep harping. So one is like, how can we collaborate together? And I think that the Toshi guys brought this up earlier. But first of all, building a design framework for dApps. Everyone's designing dApps from scratch, and saying, okay, well, how do people sign a transaction? How do we maintain security? How do we avoid phishing? All that kind of stuff, right? Material design for dApps, self-explanatory. Like, people who are very focused on this, let's get together and solve this problem. We'll sign up to do it, and we'll collaborate with whoever wants to as well. Standardizing some of the unique language and designs for Web3. Sharing of the research insights and analysis. So, for example, when we ran the study in Kiev, we have all these results and we share them, but then we share them like no one actually is listening, right? And so should we have a Slack or an email group or whatever to basically tell people, hey, we could learn all this really awesome stuff from this work that we did. And then finally, yeah, I mean, you know, there's an Ethereum community fund. Why should there not be some sort of Ethereum design group of people who really care about this stuff and come up with the first point? Work on material design for dApps. Anyway, so that kind of hopefully that gives an overview of like what we're doing at Status, as well as like how we really want to push forward this improvement of user experience for dApp developers and the entire Ethereum community. Thank you.
Any questions for Status?
So first, I would like to comment. Like I think it is a meeting about UX, but I think it's because we are in such an early stage. There are a lot of problems we have in UX. Are actually engineering problems that we have to solve before. So that's an interesting aspect. I would like to understand a little bit more about your like user testing. First of all, they have a bunch of beers there. Is everyone like drinking?
No comment.
Okay. But I think it's an interesting question on how to user test, because there's so much new things that you're adding, and who is the user you're testing? Is it like the random person on the street?
Yeah.
Is it like the person who knows what crypto is? And are you doing like only on person, or are you doing using like sites like Usability Hub to do like online testing? I would like to tell more about this.
So the beer, no comment. In terms of who are the users, every user test we do different people. That particular one where we tested a new sign-up flow, like a new onboarding flow, was 8 people who own cryptocurrencies, but they probably own it through Coinbase, or like they may not have a ledger, but they own cryptocurrencies. That was the criteria. It's definitely not random people off the street. We've actually thought about 4 different audiences that the app will first try and go towards. For example, people who are super passionate about privacy, people who own crypto, and there's 2 others. So we're targeting people in certain audiences. We're not doing any user testings on like my brother, who may not understand any of it. The second question about do we also use like user insights, like quantitative analysis? Yes, we do that as well. And the number of people like in this study was 8. And so then the thing about when you do a study out of 8 people, you can't get any you can't say like, well, 5 out of 8 were confused because your numbers are too small, but you can identify, for example, like mismatches in button placement or whatever it is.
Yeah, so great to see that y'all are doing user testing, and I think that's super needed. One of the things I wanted to know, well, actually 2 questions, and I think you just got to part of the answer there. One is, what is the current architecture of your design practice right now? How many designers, what are they working on? And then second is, on the user testing, how many tests per persona are you usually running before you feel confident making a change?
Okay, so to the first question, our designers basically work in the swarm, so they target a particular problem that we're trying to solve. So like as of today, I believe we've just improved our onboarding flow, so the designers are working on, there's one team working on ERC 721 support, there's another one working on increasing UI density for the chat screen. There's like a handful of these different projects where each one